Crop production. Cereals. Cereals are grass-like crops that are harvested for their dry seeds. These seeds often ground to make flour. Cereals provide almost half of all calories consumed in the world. Botanically, cereals are the members of the Poaceae or grass family. Beverages. Beverages like tea and coffee have very little nutritive value but are very stimulating and therefore popular all over the world. Oil-yielding plants. Common oil-yielding plants are castor, sunflower, coconut, and mustard. They provide us fatty acids. Pulses. Pulses like black gram, green gram, pigeon pea, etc. are rich in proteins. Fiber-yielding plants. Fiber-yielding plants like cotton and jute are of paramount importance and utility. Aromatic vegetable products. These vegetable products are used to give flavor to the food and are also known as spices. A few important spices of India are ginger, turmeric, cloves, pepper, and coriander. Fodder crops. Crops like sorghum, oat, etc. are grown for animals. Types of crops. Kharif crops. Crops like paddy, maize, soybean, cotton, etc. which are grown in rainy season, that is, from June to September, are called Kharif crops. Rabi crops. Crops like wheat, gram, pea and mustard, which are grown in winter season, generally from October to March, are called Rabi crops. Plant breeding. Plant breeding is an applied branch of botany which deals with the improvement of economically important plants. Its objective is to produce plants with higher yield, better quality, disease, insect and pest resistant. Also, the development of new variety is for particular environment and specific agronomic characters like dwarfness, better response to fertilizers, etc. The main steps in plant breeding are collection of variability. Variation means differences among different species. In many plants, pre-existing genetic variability is available from wild relatives of the crop. Here we collect all the diverse forms of a particular crop that will contain all genes in a given crop. Evaluation and selection of parents. It involves the selection of plants with desirable traits. Selection in self-pollinated crops. Self-pollinated plants gradually become homozygous for particular trait, that is, we can obtain pure lines with best traits from them. Due to self-pollination, seeds of such crops can be used year after year. Selection in cross-pollinated crops. Cross-pollinated crops are heterozygous, that is, they contain mixture of many genotypes. The frequency of superior genotypes is enhanced by reducing heterozygosity. The germ plasm or genetic characteristics of the organism is evaluated so as to identify the plants with desirable combination of characters. Hybridization. It is the crossing of two plants differing from one another genotypically in one or more traits. Selection only helps to isolate the good genes but fails to make the genes better. By hybridization, it is possible to combine all the characters in a single variety. Its main objectives are to produce a single variety having combination of good characters to utilize the hybrid vigor. Selection and testing of superior recombinants. Newly developed variety is checked for its yield, quality, disease and insect resistance before it is released to the farmers. Improvement of crops. Factors for which variety improvement is done is given here. High yielding. The improved varieties of seeds yield more crops per hectare as compared to traditional varieties. Desirable characteristics. The plants of high-yielding varieties of crops are not very tall. They are dwarf, due to which they are stronger and therefore they can withstand strong winds. Biotic and abiotic resistance. Certain biotic and abiotic stresses badly affect crops. Resistant varieties to these stresses are being developed for improvement in crop production. Early maturation. The high-yielding varieties of crops takes less time for maturing than the traditional varieties of crops. Therefore, these varieties save a lot of time for raising other crops in the same field. Better crop yield. The high-yielding varieties of crops give a better response than the traditional crop varieties. Therefore, they give better crop yields. Crop management. Weeds, insects, and pests infest the field crops. These can be controlled by using pesticides, weedicides, insecticides, fungicides, etc. Weeds. Weeds are unwanted plants which grow off their own along with crop plants, for example, Parthenium, Xanthium, etc. Insect pests. These usually attack plants by cutting plant parts, sucking cell sap, boring holes into stems and fruits. Essential elements. There are 0.5% of micronutrients and 3.5% of macronutrients present in total essential elements. Micronutrients are iron, chlorine, manganese, boron, zinc, copper, and molybdenum. Macronutrients are nitrogen, potassium, calcium, phosphorus, magnesium, and sulfur. Here you can see effect of different nutrients on plant. Nitrogen deficiency in plants causes inhibition of growth and necrosis of older leaves. Phosphorus deficiency in plants retards their growth and makes the leaves darker. Sulfur deficiency leads to chlorosis of older leaves and makes the venation reddish. Potassium deficiency causes necrosis of the edges of older leaves. Magnesium deficiency causes chlorosis and necrosis of the edges of leaves as well as the formation of spots on older leaves. Calcium deficiency in plants causes the weathering of shoot apex and deformation of leaves. Organic farming. Organic farming is a form of agriculture that relies on techniques such as crop rotation, green manure, compost, and biological pest control. In this farming system, there is no or very less use of chemicals like fertilizers, herbicides, pesticides, insecticides, etc. Organic manure, recycled farm waste, bioagents, biofertilizers, biopesticides are abundantly used in this farming system. Crop rotation, mixed cropping, and intercropping practices are helpful in the organic farming. Irrigation systems. Irrigation is the technique of providing water to crops in the fields by means of canals, reservoirs, wells and tube wells, etc. Irrigation system is a designed equipment and technique of replenishing the soil water deficit. Irrigation helps in the growth of roots by availability of water in the soil. It also helps in the absorption of nutrients by plants in the soil. Storage of grains. After harvesting of crop, farmers store grain in bulk using different types of storage structures made of different available materials. The pre-treatment necessary for better storage is cleaning and drying of the grain and fumigation using different chemicals which can kill insects and pests. The structural design of storage pots and its construction also plays a vital role in storage. Storage losses constitute a major share of food grain loss in post-production operations. Some biotic and abiotic factors are responsible for loss of quality of food grains, poor germinability of seeds, etc. These factors are insects, rodents, microbes, bacteria and fungi, moisture and temperature. Manures. Manures are the organic substances obtained from the decomposition of vegetation and organic waste by the action of microorganisms. There are 4 types of manures: farmyard manure, compost, vermicompost, and green manure. Farmyard manure. It is a decomposed mixture of cattle excreta, urine, litter, and leftover organic matter such as roughage or fodder. Compost. It is prepared from farm and town refuse such as animal and vegetable refuse. Vermicompost. The decomposition of organic waste through the consumption by the earthworms is called vermicomposting. Green manure. The practice of green manuring includes growing, mulching by plowing, and mixing of green crops with soil to improve soil fertility. Functions of manure. Manures replenish the general deficiency of nutrients in the soil. Manures add organic matter called humus to the soil, which restores the soil texture for better retention of water and aeration of soil. Manures are eco-friendly to the environment. Fertilizers. Fertilizers are commercially manufactured using chemicals. Fertilizers provide nutrients such as nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium to the plants. They are used for good vegetative growth, thus giving rise to healthy plants. Fertilizers are used very small quantities as they contain much higher amounts of nutrients in comparison to the manures. Mixed cropping. Mixed cropping is the practice of growing two or more crops simultaneously in the same piece of land. The basic objective in mixed cropping is to minimize the risk and ensure against the crop failure due to abnormal weather conditions. The following combinations of crops are used by farmers in mixed cropping: maize and urad bean, cotton and moong bean, groundnut and sunflower, wheat and chickpea, wheat and mustard. Intercropping. Intercropping is the practice of growing two or more crops simultaneously in a same field in definite row patterns with the objective of increasing productivity per unit area. Intercropping makes better use of the natural resources of sunlight, land, and water. It also checks soil erosion.